Hi guys, this is Mike L. We are at the Toronto Comic Con with our pal Fin Fang Feldman. How are you, Aaron?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. So we had a great discussion yesterday. We were talking about the recent release of the 20th Century Fox movie Logan. And in your opinion, this is a step in the right direction for superhero movies. Do you want to talk about why you think that?
Yeah, for sure. So I went into Logan after people saying, oh, it's the best superhero movie, and I saw it, and I didn't think I was going to like it that much because people said the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. They've said it about Deadpool. And these are all fine movies, but not particularly special to me, I found.
Sure.
And this was a movie that was really smart, really clever, and what it did that I haven't seen in a long time is they completely abandoned the superhero structure that you see in every Marvel movie. And the Marvel movies aren't bad, but the structure is kind of sort of made a very consistent average, and every super, like Doctor Strange, Civil War, Ant-Man, you sit and you enjoy it, and it goes through this structure, and then it finishes, and then you feel like you got your money's worth, but you don't really remember it that much.
No.
Maybe Winter Soldier is a bit of an exception, but even that, it mostly follows this pattern. And I think Logan, and from people I've been talking to after, not only was it an engaging movie that has its ups and downs, but it also sat with people a lot afterwards. People remembering certain plot points and just feeling affected by it days later. And I think that this is the product of someone, for the first time in a long time, and maybe someone will point out something else that I'm forgetting, but kind of abandoning this safe structure and it working well in their favor. This is the kind of thing, I think that people probably stopped doing this, other than Chris Nolan, but they stopped doing this after Ang Lee's The Hulk was a flop.
Great point.
Yeah. And it was because at the time, there was no need for it because people were kind of experimenting. They hadn't figured out the formula yet. And so he did something kind of experimental and different, and it didn't quite hit, and no one liked it. And then after this formula came out, after years of getting the same superhero story forever and ever, now we're finally seeing something a little different. And to be fair to Deadpool, I feel that it also started this trend a bit. And it's paying off for 20th Century Fox. If these two movies were a failure, I don't think we'd be seeing any more Marvel movies outside of the Marvel Studios. But it's working out, and I think that Marvel hopefully is paying attention and realizing that there's benefits to taking some risks.
And the thing is you see people online like, give X-Men back to Marvel Studios. Well, why? You're just going to get another movie where a bunch of executives are going to watch every scene and go, check. Okay, with Doctor Strange, we got a little Inception in there. We got a little Harry Potter. We're good. We got that covered. With Logan and with The Hulk by Ang Lee, which I didn't even like, but I agree with you. At least it was a filmmaker trying to make a good film first,
right,
and then it was a superhero movie. And that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, film first, superhero trope second.
Yes.
I think one of the things is that superheroes have become a genre that have all these requirements that they have to hit, and people go in and they expect all these things, and maybe when they go, we want to see a Marvel X-Men movie, it's like, we know what it will be, and we know how good it will be, and it will be fine. But I think, and when you take risks, you may end up with like a piece of crap, which is always a shame, but then you may end up with something that stands above everything else. Actually, for me, because I love Dark Knight and I hate Dark Knight Rises, but that might be a good example of a director who tried taking a risk with both, didn't pay off the second time, in my opinion. I thought it was sloppy and kind of all over the place, but at least it was memorable.
Yep.
And something you actually pointed out later is like, we may make fun of Dark Knight Rises all the time, but like Bane has become iconic.
Yes.
That voice has become iconic. Sometimes made fun of, but people remember it.
Yes.
And I don't think 3 years from now anyone will remember anything about Ant-Man, for example.
Yeah, you're right.
Doctor Strange had some good visuals. I think people will remember that, but they wouldn't be able to tell you a plot or quote a line, because you sit down in your seats, you get entertained for an hour and a half, and then you forget about it, and that's fine, but it's only fine. And that's why Logan, I think, was so much more promising. And I don't know, I just really hope that people are paying attention, and the fact that it did well commercially will spur people who are a little more averse to taking risks to take those risks, because it's less risky.
And I think the key too is that it's not just about letting a writer or director go crazy. It's about letting a writer director want to tell a story that is when I say personal, I don't mean necessarily expressive, but it's like in this movie, James Mangold, he's writing this script or co-writing it, and it's like, you know what? I want to do a scene where Logan meets a family at the side of the road and stays with them overnight and gets to know them, and we share some of these moments together, and then we get involved in this other plot where it's like, oh well, the water's being shut off by this sort of gang of hillbillies, and in a Marvel movie that would have been cut so fast to make room for no, we got to set up the next movie, and in this movie it's like let it breathe, and the point is that the average moviegoer is not going to walk away and go, I like that scene, or I even remember that scene, but I think that it being there makes the movie better and does make it more memorable and makes it come back and stick with you.
Yeah, that the scene with the water plant may be forgettable, and it may be something that's executive be like, you can cut that. But because of that scene, what happens after, you've gotten so attached to this family and stuff, so that whatever happens, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it sits with you for longer. Everything means something. You could watch this movie and not watch a single X-Men movie and still care about Logan and still care about Charles Xavier and still care about Laura and this family and all these kids and stuff. And it's just something you don't get that often with these superhero stories you're getting. They'll show a character, give them a saves the cat kind of moment where they do something impressive, and you go, oh, I like Ant-Man because he said a quippy line, or because he cares about his family, and then they just go into the plot. Or I like Doctor Strange because he's a funny guy who kind of is like Tony Stark. And so I understand that that's a risk, right? Because you don't need to be in the mood to see Guardians of the Galaxy. You could be in the worst mood, you could be happy, you just go see it and you laugh and you see a raccoon talk to a tree and then they save the world and great, and that's done. But for something like Logan, it's like, don't see this if you're feeling depressed because it's going to ruin you.
And actually Comic Book Girl gave a really good review of Logan, but she did feel that it was too depressing. And my reaction to that is, it is, but unfortunately, look, we're not in the middle or the beginning of a superhero's life. We're at the end. What else is supposed to happen? How else can it end, right?
Well, it is a tragedy. Like that. Yeah. That's the thing, is it is a tragic movie. Not that I'm saying it's like Shakespeare, but you could complain that some of Shakespeare's plays are too depressing, but that's what they are. Yes. Or some of my favorite movies, like I love Children of Men. I think this has some parallels to it. It's a bummer. It's a bummer of a movie that has these uplifting moments just the same way that Logan does. And it's got like awesome action scenes and comic relief and all that. But at the end of the day, it is sad and it commits to that. And that's fine. I think that's what movies do. They pick a lane and they honor that and they stay true to that. I feel that back to Marvel, every Marvel needs a moment where you get choked up and a moment where you think it's super funny and a moment where you go, oh my God, that was a huge explosion. But it has this check mark.
And a moment where you have a song from the 70s, right?
Yeah.
AM 70s hit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just sort of realize that works. And then
let's do it again. Okay, so now, final question. What do you think is the most underrated superhero movie that falls into what you're talking about, where it's a personal movie, an organic movie, and it's good?
First one that comes to mind, so this isn't necessarily underrated, but just as soon as you said it, one that I really loved that, I don't think got a huge following, but I mean, it gained a little bit of cult hit, was Hellboy.
Okay.
Now, I think it was a little bit of, like this part's funny, this part's whatever, but I think that was a youngish Guillermo del Toro who was still wanted to make a film and wanted to embrace everything that was weird about it. And he didn't filter it through a superhero lens. He just made Hellboy the movie. So that was one that I loved when I saw it in theaters. I didn't like the sequel as much, but that was even a personal thing. I still think he committed to what he wanted to tell. And I would have loved to have seen Edgar Wright's Ant-Man.
Oh boy, me too. Lament for Edgar Wright's Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's mine, okay? The most underrated superhero movie of the past 20 years, you may agree, you may disagree, Ghost Rider 1. And I'm not kidding.
So I saw it much later because it got bad, and I saw it on a burned disc when I was just home alone one summer in university. So it didn't grab me that much, but I think that's fair. I mean, you could tell that Nick Cage loves the character, and that's valuable. The same way that Hugh Jackman clearly loves
Yeah.
Wolverine, or Ryan Reynolds loves Deadpool.
Yeah.
And I think that does account for something. That does mean something. I don't know if it's underrated in that no one likes
Yeah,
it. So I think maybe some people should
Yeah.
like it. It wasn't the worst.
Some, come on.
Yeah. Like, I'd say the same thing about Green Lantern. I didn't hate it, but it's not good.
No, it's just so boring.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic Four is boring.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do think Iron Man 3 is a little underrated.
Okay.
I think it tried to kind of kick against the genre a little bit by upsetting things, rebelling how it could with like the choice of the Mandarin, or the fact that like the best Iron Man scene wasn't him fighting anyone but saving all those people who were free falling from the plane. I think it tried to embrace Iron Man in a kind of underhanded way that
Sure.
people kind of got mad about. Like, they got really mad about the Mandarin choice, but I think that was kind of Shane Black trying to make a movie that was a good movie despite being a superhero movie. I don't think it's perfect, but I do appreciate that it kind of tried to do something different.
One more. Underrated Spider-Man 3. Ruined by studio interference, but it has scenes in it that we still talk about, like him combing his hair over his eyes and strutting down the street and punching his girlfriend in the face. Things like that we remember, right?
Yeah, and I don't love Venom, but I did like Eddie Brock, which is fine. Like, yeah.
It was good. And again, the fact that we can talk about it now, I mean, means that it was at least memorable, right?
Yeah.
There you go, folks. So check out some of the movies we talked about, and keep this in mind the next time you see a Marvel movie. There you go, Aaron Fin Fang Feldman with his take on why Logan is a step in the right direction for superhero movies.